Hello everybody. I'd like to personally welcome you to the video you are watching right now. This video you're going to be watching is going to be a part of our new series that we're doing called the Relate series at Plymouth Park Baptist Church in our student ministry. We hope you will share this, obviously, with people that you know, and also that you will personally enjoy what we've put together for you. Thank you.
One of those. We're going to be in the Old Testament. Oh, the Old Testament's got good stuff too. Psalm 54. Go ahead and turn there. And what we're going to be talking about today in our Relate series, you guys know? It's not up there. We've been talking about a lot of things, but tonight we're going to be talking about depression and suicide. Now, these are big issues, things that affect all of us. More than likely, you probably have a family member, if not you yourself, have struggled with depression and even thoughts of suicide. So what I want to do tonight is just address what it is, how it kind of affects all of us in our families, ourselves, school, kind of wherever you go. Jason, can you mute everything other than this mic? I'm getting a radio station coming through the speakers. So how it affects everything in our lives. And even if you don't struggle with it, then chances are someone you know does. Okay, so can you guys do me a favor though? Like scoot your chairs in this way, so I'm not like looking over here and then over there. Just scoot in this way, and then scoot up too. If you're sitting in the back, come to the front, or yeah, just scoot it together. So scoot, everybody just come together. Like you're sitting together in chairs like this way. Move this way towards the middle, towards the middle, towards the middle. You guys don't have to because you're in the middle. So keep scooting, keep scooting. Everybody scoot this way. You just want to sit by each other. Let's sit by each other. Keep it moving. Yeah, Kevin's got the right idea. Everybody else scoot down. Scoot down. Scoot down. Scoot down. Keep scooting. Oh, okay, you guys are getting it. Yeah, keep going, keep going, keep going. You're almost there. You're beating the left side. Yeah, scoot together. What page is it? I don't know. It's Psalm. Psalm 54. Look at the beginning of your Bible. It'll tell you where it is. All right? Okay. Here we go. So, what we're going to do first is look at what is depression, what is suicide, how it affects us. Okay, and the second thing we're going to do is how people in the Bible have dealt with this, and we'll look at how they responded to it. So a lot of times it's easy to say, well, I struggle with depression, or I've had suicidal thoughts, but then you don't really know how to address it. How do I combat this from a biblical perspective? How do people handle it in the Bible? You might not even think that it's in there, but it is. Okay, so let's look at depression, all right? So this is definition. Again, I keep going to like what's called secular sources. You guys know what those are? Secular sources is pretty much anything that's not the Bible, okay? So I've gone to secular sources just to give you an idea of what we're talking about so that I'm not just using the Bible or just using things that I make up, okay? So you guys can go look these definitions up, this information. It's on the CDC, which is what we're talking about like every week. Center for Disease Control. There you go. Okay, perfect. So you guys can go look up this information. This is depression. Okay, this is what it says. Depression is a serious medical illness and an important public health issue. All right. Depression is characterized by persistent sadness, sometimes irritability, particularly in children, and is one of the leading causes of disease or injury worldwide for both men and women. Sounds like a big deal, doesn't it? Sounds like a big issue. Maybe that's what they're seeming to indicate. Depression can cause suffering for depressed individuals, that seems obvious, and can also have negative effects on their families and communities in which they live. The economic burden, what's economic mean?
Money.
Money stuff, right, there you go, Jason. So the economic burden of depression, including workplace costs, direct costs, and suicide-related costs, was estimated to be $210 billion. That was just last year, okay? Depression is associated with significant health care needs, school programs, loss of work, and early mortality. Whoa. If you're like sad all the time, or you're depressed, and you don't learn how to deal with it, I mean, you don't talk to somebody about it, you don't go to the Bible, it can result in what? Mortality, what is that?
Early death.
Yeah, okay, so early death. So if you were going to live to be like 80, maybe you don't live so long. So it's like 60, right? So it'd be an important thing for us to address, okay? There's other things that go along with this. Depression is associated with an increased risk for mortality. We already talked about that. From suicide, as well as other causes such as heart disease. Okay, so it would make sense, guys, if you're sad, or depressed a lot and you don't ever figure out how to deal with it, you could have heart disease. Yeah, I know. Think about it. You're sad, it actually affects your organs. Wow. So just be aware, okay, that's just one of the things. It's associated with lower workplace productivity and more absenteeism, which results in lower income and higher employment. So what that means also is if you're struggling with this and then you don't talk to anybody, you don't go to the Bible, you don't ever try to help the situation, you don't ever seek out help, it's going to mean you're going to go to work, right? You get your job, you go to work, and then you're not going to be able to go. You're going to be sad, oh, I can't go to work today. You're not going to make money, and then they're going to end up firing you at some point maybe, and then there's going to be unemployment there in that situation. Okay, so that's not good either. It's associated with a higher risk of other conditions and behaviors, including other mental disorders, anxiety, substance abuse, and eating disorders. Whoa. So, guys, this depression issue doesn't just have to do with just being sad, right? It affects all kinds of things, okay? And this is what the CDC says, all right? So let's take a look at suicide also. So I know this is something that it happens. It probably you know somebody that has happened too. They decided to take their own life. That's what the definition is. Suicide was the 10th leading cause of death for all ages. This says 2013, okay? So it's probably still somewhere up there, maybe 9, maybe 11, something like that. But the 10th leading cause of death. Right, so that's like everything else, like cancer and every other disease, stuff like that. You know, car accidents, that kind of stuff. The 10th leading cause of suicide. So it says there were over 41,000 in 2013 in the United States suicides in just that 1 year. Do you guys know what that means? A lot. Well, that's a lot of people, yeah. But if you were to break it down, that's 113 per day, or 1 every 13 minutes. And that's just the United States. So you think about it, you take the whole world, it's probably closer to every couple of minutes. Someone's taking their own life. And it doesn't have to be like that, okay? So again, but this is just data, this is information that the CDC is providing us with, okay? So you might be interested to know in your age group as well. I always like to do this so that you guys are aware of what's going on with your age group and then the people who are your friends too. All right. So among students, this is going to be grades 6 through 12. Back in 2013, again, this is probably not going to change a whole lot. 17% of students seriously considered attempting suicide in the last year. But 22% would be female, 11% would be male. It says 13% of students made a plan about how they would attempt suicide in the last year. 8% of students attempted suicide 1 or more times in the last year. So, does anybody know anyone? I mean, you don't have to say it's you, but do you know someone that struggled with that? Just raise your hand. Somebody struggled with suicide, thoughts of depression, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's probably at least half of us. That's a pretty good number. And in fact, this study would show that somewhere just under 20% of your age group struggles with this, thoughts about it, because they have depression or they simply don't want to be around for whatever reason. Okay, so there's some breakdowns, males, females, that kind of stuff, but who is more likely. I'm not going to read any of that stuff because it just really doesn't matter. But for you guys, I want you to know that's when you go to school, just under 20% of your peers, when you go to school in your classroom, think there's 100 people here, you know, a little bit less than 20 of them struggle with suicidal thoughts. That's a lot. Why do you guys think that is? Because they're going through stuff at home, maybe? What else? Circumstances a lot of time will dictate whether somebody is depressed, whether they feel sad, whether they have those thoughts. Any other ideas why people struggle with that? No? They get bullied? Yeah. I mean, that would make me sad. I really hated it when people bullied my friends and just really anybody in school. That made me sad. I didn't like it. Anything else? People struggle with sadness, suicide, depression. No? Okay. But you give me plenty of examples. I want you guys to turn to Psalm 54. You're not already there. We're going to be in Psalm 54. We're actually just going to read the whole thing. I don't know if you guys know a lot about the Psalms or the Proverbs, 1st and 2nd Samuel. They tend to talk about a few kind of more important figures in the Bible. There's going to be a guy named David. Anybody know who David is? Who's David? King David, yeah. He's a great man. Okay. What else? He defeated Goliath. Yeah, that's one of the things he's more probably noted for. So we're about to read a psalm where David talks about being really, really depressed, really sad, really heartbroken that there's a circumstance in his life. It's not so cool. You guys would read it and probably go, yeah, I probably wouldn't like that either. But David, he slayed Goliath. What else happened? He went from being a little shepherd boy, right? Had a bunch of sheep he was taking care of, and then the Philistines had a lot of fights with Israel, and they were looking for somebody. They were looking for a guy who could defeat Goliath. And what happened when the king came? Like, bring all your guys around, and David he wasn't even there because he was with the sheep. And somebody asked David's dad, "Hey, where's David?" And he said, "Oh, don't worry about him. He's just tending the sheep. He's a little shepherd boy. He could probably never be anything else, right?" And they said, "No, go get him." So they got him. You know the story. He slays Goliath. Goliath dies. David cuts his head off. Oh, that wasn't in the little kid's book, I don't think. But anyway, that did happen. And so he kills Goliath, and he's now he's going to be anointed as the new king of Israel. Because Saul, you guys know who Saul is? I'm talking about the Saul before Paul in the New Testament. I'm talking about Saul, king of Israel, who was the king when David came onto the scene and killed Goliath. You know who that guy is? Well, he's one of the first kings, really the first king of Israel, because the people said, we want a king, all right? And God said, you really don't want that, because if you get a king, all men are sinful, and so eventually they're going to make mistakes, and then you're going to go, why'd you give us a king? What they really needed was just to worship God. So anyway, God gave him a king. David comes onto the scene right after he kills Goliath, and God's saying, David is a man after my own heart. And so I want him to come. I want him to come and be king. And you know how Saul responds? Was he like, thank you, God. I was waiting to be replaced. I was hoping that would happen. But is that what happened? You guys know? Well, Saul wasn't really very happy with this. So he decides, I'm going to hunt David down and I'm going to try to kill him so he can't be king. All right? We're going to read Psalm 54. We're going to see how David responds to this circumstance, okay? So is everybody there? Psalm 54? Here's what it says. Oh God, save me by your name and vindicate me by your might. Oh God, hear my prayer. Give ear to the words of my mouth. For strangers have risen up against me. Ruthless men seek my life. They do not set God before themselves. Behold, God is my helper. The Lord is the upholder of my life. He will return the evil to my enemies. In your faithlessness, put an end to them. With a free will offering, I will sacrifice to you. I will give thanks to your name, O Lord, for it is good. For he has delivered me from trouble, and my eyes have looked in triumph on my enemies. So if you guys look up at the top line, it says something there like choir master, stringed instrument of Maskil of David. When the Ziphites went and told Saul, is David not hiding among us? And then David's response, David knows, the king's made it pretty clear, he's trying to kill David. And what happens? What does David do? Whenever he knows he's being sought out, Saul he wants to kill him, he's sending people to kill him. He prays, right? And he says, oh God, save me by your name and vindicate me by your might. Oh God, hear my prayer. Give ear to the words of my mouth. And then he tells us what's happening. For strangers have risen against me. Ruthless men seek my life. They do not set God before themselves. So, what's happening? These guys are coming to kill. By the way, has anybody said they're going to kill you, and then they tried to do it, and they got all their friends together? They said, "Let's go and kill him because we don't like him." No. Okay, so nobody got a posse together and said, "We're going to go kill this guy because we don't like him. Maybe he's getting too popular," right? But for David, this is what happened. And his response was not, oh God, why do you hate me? I'm so sad. I'm gonna be upset forever. And this actually carries itself out for many years. But David's response here in Psalm 54, he tells us, he says, hear my prayer. Give ear to the words of my mouth. Do you guys ever, you talked about reasons why, you can be sad or have suicidal thoughts or be depressed for a long period of time. You said things at home, being bullied, that kind of stuff. So what should our response be when things like that happen? You said it's okay because it's an emotional response, and God has made us this way to be sad about some of those things. And when somebody else gets bullied or maybe a situation is not the way it's supposed to be at home, that makes us sad, but how do we respond is the question. And what did David do?
He prayed.
He prayed to God, right? He sought him out, even though he knew people were seeking to kill him. Okay? So this is just one example. This is Psalm 54. I want you guys to turn again to 2 Samuel 12. So turn there. I want to set up the scene as you're turning there, so listen. And then we'll kind of see, this is the same guy. This is David responding to a circumstance in his life. Really, not even, probably things that have happened to David are much more extreme than anything that's ever happened to us, to cause us to be sad or depressed, or whatever you want to call it. But in 2 Samuel chapter 12, we're going to be in verses just 15 through 20. This is further along in David's life. David actually ends up becoming king. So after Saul tries to kill him, they go through all that mess. Saul actually ends up getting killed in battle. Right, so he gets hit by an archer. He lands on the ground, bleeding out. He dies, and then David takes the throne. He basically makes everything prosper quite a bit. Everybody likes David. And he's one of the first really good kings that Israel's going to have, one of the best kings they will have ever had. And you know what David did, though? So he was king. I guess he thought maybe like maybe like you guys might. If you were king, you could do whatever you want, right? And you could get away with it. So what David did was he saw a woman that he wanted. He said, I know she's got a wife, but I want to take her for myself. Sorry, husband, yeah. He didn't have a wife, that would make sense. But he had a husband, and David said, I want to take her for my own. So he took her, slept with her, and then what usually happens when that takes place, she got pregnant, and, oh, by the way, David had her husband killed. And do you guys know this stuff?
I do.
Okay, good, that's good. So, and these are characters in the Bible that will say, this guy had a heart after God, right? He was pursuing after God. So even after he becomes king, we see in 2 Samuel for there, chapter 12, verse 15, I just want to read you what happens, and it's not maybe what you might expect, but it's another one of these circumstances that, and if we look at the situation, man, he had every reason to just, despair, to be depressed, to say, God, I'm awful, this is terrible, why'd you let this happen? But he doesn't necessarily respond that way, okay? Let's see what he does. So, this is verse 15, 2 Samuel, chapter 12. The Lord afflicted the child that Uriah's wife bore to David. Okay, Uriah was the husband, okay? And so, the wife David bore, and he became sick. So this little baby, all right, became sick. This was David's kid that he had with Bathsheba, was her name. And it says, David therefore sought God on behalf of the child, and David fasted and went in and laid all night on the ground. And the elders of the house stood beside him to raise him from the ground, but he would not. Nor did he eat food with them. On the seventh day, the child died. And the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead. For they said, Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spoke to him, and he did not listen to us. How then can we say to him, the child is dead? He may do himself some harm. But David, when he saw this, the servants were whispering together, David understood that the child was dead. David said to the servants, Is the child dead? They said, He is dead. Then David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his clothes, and he went into the house of the Lord, and he worshiped. And then went to his house, and when he asked, they set food before him, and he ate. So David's done this horrible thing. And as a result, a child's come into the picture. The child becomes sick because of what David had done. The child ends up dying, and David spends his time really probably more weeping, laying on the ground, fasting, praying. So he wasn't eating, and he was interceding. Right? He was talking to God, and he said, "I will." Yeah, but what happened to the kid? So the child died, and then what did David's his guys say? His servants, his leaders, his people who are around him. They say, if we go and tell David the child's dead, what do you think he's going to do? I mean, he may hurt himself. I mean, he was like laying on the ground. He wasn't eating. He wasn't drinking anything. What do you think's going to happen? They didn't even want to. And then David, because he was a wise dude, he understood. Huh?
He's all right.
Well, maybe not all right, but what was his response?
I think he said,
Yeah, well, they knew that. David was dead. And then what happened? How did David respond? So we look before that when David knew guys were after him, they were trying to kill him, and he prayed to God, right? What happens after his child dies? I think these are weird responses. You guys think that, oh, someone's trying to kill me, I should run away and hide, and then be sad the rest of my life and never come out again. Well, David didn't do that. He prayed to God. He said, I know that you've got everything under control. And then when David's child dies, he does something else. So that when David saw him, he understood the child was dead. The servants told him, yes, the child was dead. And then David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his clothes. And then what does he do? So he got changed. He was laying on the dirt and the ground and nasty probably. What did he do? Yeah, it says he went into the house of the Lord and he worshiped. Now, how much of the time, guys, if you have a relationship with Jesus Christ, I wouldn't expect you to act this way if you didn't, but if you know God, if you have a relationship with Him, then what's our response? Like, when things happen, circumstances happen in our life, maybe our home situation isn't the greatest, you said that, maybe we're being bullied. Is our response just to go, I want to go crawl in a hole somewhere and hide and just cry for the rest of my life? Or what happened with David, he prayed to God and said, God, I know you're going to hear what I say. I know you've got everything under control, even though these guys are trying to kill me. When his child died later in life, he went, and after his child even passed away, what was his response? He went into God's house and he worshiped God. So he prayed and he worshiped the Lord. And I would challenge you guys that, and I'll just say this again, if you don't know God, if you don't have a relationship with Him, and we talk about it all the time, if that's a decision that you need to make, that really you need to put your faith and your trust in Jesus Christ. And maybe I'm saying some of these things, you're like, David prayed, David worshiped God, how could he do that? I would never do that. Well, maybe there's a problem there. Maybe you've not had that opportunity. And so what I want to do at the end of this time, I just want to share with you, give you the opportunity to do that, just to do that, to put your faith and trust in the Lord, because I would almost guarantee you that when the same things you've described happen, that would say, well, that would make me sad, that would make me depressed, that may happen, but then what do you do afterwards? Do you just stay that way?
No.
We should. So, here's what happened. How David responded. We know that he prayed, that he worshiped the Lord. So how do we address this? How do we look to things like depression and suicide? So I'll just leave you with this. Depression, we can't respond like David did, okay? We don't have God in our lives if we're struggling. Yet if we're believers, God isn't telling us, He didn't create us with emotions not to be sad or be upset about things, but He didn't create us to stay in those things, okay? I know sometimes that maybe when somebody you love or passes away or something really terrible happens, you may think, well, I'm never going to get out of this. But maybe if our response was to pray, to seek God's face, and to worship Him, then it might be more possibility for that to happen. Okay? I know some people say, and I haven't brought this up yet, but with like depression and those thoughts of suicide, some people will say, well, just go to a psychiatrist and just get the medication, and then you'll just always be happy. What I want to challenge you guys with, if you're in that place and you're struggling with that and you are a believer, I would always say you're going to want to go to God first. Like David did, you're going to want to pray, you're going to want to worship, you're going to want to talk with a pastor, and talk with your family. I mean, the more people you have involved in it, the more chance you're going to have success in getting out of that. Now, I will say, guys, I've seen some extreme cases of depression, people who are just really, really struggling with suicidal thoughts, and I would not say that you need to get to the point where you're like, I can't even think straight. This is the only thing I think about, thing I have to do. God also gave us medicine for a reason. He also gave us things to help us. But what I would say is that, and you see all those people in the Bible who came in contact with really terrible situations, and what they do, they say, oh, we're just going to go to the psychiatrist, we're going to go to the counselor person, they're going to give us these antidepressants and anxiety and that type of stuff, and that's just going to fix the problem no matter what. Now, hear me saying, guys, if that's something you say, well, I've had to do that, or I know somebody that does, I'm not saying that's a terrible, awful thing. God has even allowed doctors to create those kind of things to help us, but should it not be something that's a last resort as opposed to the automatic thing that we go to? A lot of people say, well, I struggle with depression, or I struggle with this, or I struggle with that, and they always just jump to, well, I'm just going to be on this medication and take care of it, instead of first looking to the Lord, okay? Now, how do we address suicide as well? Well, what we know is that, as we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, God doesn't look at us and He goes, yeah, I don't really care about you, you can end your life if you want to. No, we know that God cares about us. He's created us in His image, and to say to yourself or even somebody else, yeah, He doesn't care, you can take your own life, that's not something that God wants for us, okay? So, as we've talked about this, as we see the response that the Bible says is a man who's after God's heart, that in really difficult times and tough times when somebody might think, well, there's nothing left for me, my child's died, these guys are trying to kill me, pursue me, probably nothing like that has happened to you, if I had to guess, but yet we get sad and depressed about really a lot more silly things, and then we just sit in it. We don't ask God for help, we don't talk to our family, we don't worship Him during that time. We come to church and just sort of like, well, we're here, but I don't really feel like worshiping God because my life's not perfect. That's not what the Bible says is going to happen. It doesn't say He's going to give us a perfect life, but I'm convinced that maybe we respond in some of the similar ways that godly men and women did in the Bible, and maybe that would change for us. Maybe we wouldn't struggle with as much of that depression, those thoughts, maybe our friends would. And then you can also offer that hope to your friends, right? To those that need to hear the good news, okay? So guys, if you don't know what this is, if you don't know what the gospel is, it's that Jesus came. You guys know what happened at the beginning of the Bible? Man messed everything up. He sinned. He did what God said not to. Jesus came into the picture. He died for our sins after living a perfect life. He was raised from the dead on the third day. And the scriptures tell us that if we would believe in that, then we would be saved. So I just want you guys just bow your head, close your eyes. What I want to ask you today is just a question. Maybe you were over at Crocker, we talked about this, but if you don't know where you're going to go when you die, maybe you leave tonight, you get in a car accident, you don't know what's going to happen. You could live another 80 years, you could die tonight. So the question I want to ask you though is, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go when you die, and who are you going to turn to? When situations in life get difficult, what are you going to do? How are you going to respond? So what I want to ask you guys to do is I'm going to pray for you, and if that's the decision that you've not made, I'd just like you guys just to come to one of the adults.